Hi everybody, how you doing? Welcome back. Um, a new video for the week. It's now October. We're now a month in. Having a little problem with my video, by the way. I had a little problem with sharing the screen. I'm actually restarting this. Anyway, we need to talk about this new assignment that I posted on Thursday. And congratulations to those who got extra credit. I realize, the subjective choice, but you know, I felt it was something that's actually kind of new, interesting, unique, but also a lingering issue that always seems to evolve. That's the bus system. But I also need to talk to you about the leads assignment, the rewrite for which is due on Monday. Let me just share the screen so I don't have a problem because I had a problem with that the first time I actually, oh, there we go. Okay. Anyway, there were a lot of R's. We really need to bone up on that because it's the most essential part of a story. Okay, so I was actually a little surprised by it, but I have to say that I have to take I take probably most of the responsibility for that because maybe I probably didn't do a good enough job teaching that skill, lead writing. Okay, and because it was pretty much across the board, all three of my classes. You know, it the very first, I was actually a little surprised because that's the very first story or assignment we had, first first couple really. The stories, the profiles were done very well, so I was actually a little surprised how the leads turned out. Anyway, let's talk about the next assignment, what I call the third assignment. Okay, now this was posted on Thursday, so to give you a little bit of a head start. Um, so as you can see here, it says, um, third assignment, fall 2023. How do you feel about the bus system? Okay. So please do a story that answers this question. And congratulations to Andrew A. That's Andrew P. Kenneth, Angela, Mark, Ammer, and Mahik for getting this. They will get extra credit. So yes, I know rules not fair, but I thought that this is a story. It's interesting. It's like we can always write about the buses, right? But it seems to be kind of evolving the whole situation. Some of you mentioned the bus app, which is just adding to the problems. So I thought, like, okay, so you know, this is such a vital part. You're thinking of the who, what, where, why, when, how elements of a story is such a vital part of the university. I don't think there's any university that depends on a bus system more than us, or at least a major institution. So the fact they threw this, but now I don't want now one thing I want to make clear is that this is not a story about the reaction to the bus app. It's a reaction to the bus system and all its problems. Okay, so I mean, I've heard people talk about crowding. I've heard people talk about my other classes because actually another class picked this too. I've heard people talk about lateness, things like that. And then, of course, I've heard people talk about the complaint about this new bus app, which just I feel like this kind of adds to the situation. So, what you need to do is you need to get 3 to 5. It says right here, 3 to 5 students. Um, okay. Basically, the idea being that you probably will only use like 3 students for your story, but you try to get more than you're going to actually use, kind of like you would like with a film or a movie. Not all of it makes into the final cut, or music the same way, right? So some gets left on the cutting room floor, you get your outtakes, stuff like that. So you try to pick what really kind of fits the narrative of your story. Now, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I feel like, that I mean, I've actually done this story before, to be honest with you. And, I've actually been a little surprised. I mean, I've had people say like the bus system actually is okay and it works well for them. So it really, sometimes you could be a little surprised when you go out and do a story. Okay. And what I'm going to do with this story, by the way, is I'm actually going to teach essentially what is like the most specific structure I can teach as far as designing a news story. I've taught more general structures like the inverted pyramid, but I want to show you how basically the most specific structure you can have for this works for the story and basically can reflect or provide a snapshot of how people feel about the bus university. There are people out there who don't think it's a big deal. I don't think that think it's not so bad. So you might run into that. Okay. And that's why you need to go out and interview a bunch of people because you might just run into that. Okay. So important note for international students. Okay. Just so you know, I did post a discussion point, and it's not just international students, it's anybody really. Okay. Because you're probably, maybe doing this from home, your dorm, whatever, so it's easier maybe. But I posted a discussion point. Okay, that's right here. Now, I appreciate, by the way, a lot of people rallied and provided the response to the Jaws question. Thank you for that. After I was a little surprised going a week without anybody, and then there was like one person. So thank you for that. But this was actually posted on Thursday. As of Saturday, no one has actually reacted to it. So this is important. How do you feel about the bus system, including the new app, but also other problems? Okay. So unless I called this up before. No, we still have replied. So, it says here is please provide an opinion and we'll use this as source material for our stories. Don't hold back. Please provide an anecdote, and I'll talk about that. A little story with a story that helps illuminate your opinions. That's basically like maybe like a personal story that kind of backs up, like for instance, the overcrowding, and those those are the best stories. What I've taught you so far essentially are just basically stories with leads and transitions, like a crime story. This fact, this fact, this fact, this fact, but actually wove it into like a really good, healthy story. Not typically a breaking news story, but a story that's actually something that's written, as you say, written to be read, something that people like to read from top to bottom, or like a good, healthy dose of anecdotes. Okay. Essentially like John Smith, if we talk about overcrowding the story, John Smith is sick of standing on a bus and like smelling like somebody's farts. I know it's gross, or smelling somebody's body odor, and then like it's claustrophobic. It's like a personal story. That's like real reporting, something that people can like really relate to. Something that people connect to, and maybe something that people never even thought of, or oh my god, yeah, I never thought of that. Something that maybe like people from maybe the parents are thinking about sending their kids to Rutgers, think about they try to decide whether they should spend their money to go to Rutgers or not. Do they want to really deal with this bus system? So maybe they see a story about the bus system, and the reaction the students have to it, and they say like, oh well, maybe they think twice or something, or maybe they find a way to adapt, or maybe they find some endorsement for the bus system perhaps, and it's not so bad. I don't know. That's why you need to go out and get, I would say, at least 5 people, but you can get them from here. You don't have to use people from this discussion point. There will be people here, I promise you, because this is also part of your class participation grade, as I told you at the beginning of the semester, is participating in these discussion points. So I know you will do that, because I'll make note of that. All right. So anyway, so there's a discussion point for this. Okay. And anyway, so, but for people who maybe don't live in this country or something like that, this is actually good for them to use the discussion point. You usually get like a healthy amount, obviously 11, 12. Hopefully, I like the whole class to participate, to be honest with you. But so here's what you do: interview 3 to 5 students, like I'll talk about in my lecture video. This is what I posted on Thursday. Just remember that you do have a discussion point with students who have responded already. Well, actually, I was hoping, I guess it's like pre-written language. I guess we haven't gotten to that point yet. But anyway, sorry about that. As I noted on the syllabus, all assignments, unless otherwise indicated, are 500 words. Theme the story around the central prevailing consensus opinion. Okay, so I'm guessing you're probably gonna have more people than not are gonna say the bus system kind of sucks. So it's gonna say Rutgers students say they're fed up about the bus system Rutgers University. Maybe add a little more information that to kind of reflect an idea and an angle. An overall idea being the bus system, and an angle being how they feel about it and why. Kind of like an umbrella topic that kind of reflects what the whole story is going to say and gives people some sort of hook to read it. Okay. Or maybe it'll be more mixed. So you say Rutgers students say they have mixed opinions about the bus system, that sort of thing. Okay. I gave you provided an example. I probably should have called this up actually, but I'll do it right now. Of us, what I'll do is, if I get like a story that comes in early and it's good, I'll post it and I'll send it out. I'll post it here too. But I've done these reaction stories in the past, so there is an example of a story that deals that is a reaction story that I have here. that basically like follows that kind of format. I do think that it's funny. Sometimes I think I should actually switch this out because I think that some of the quotes in this particular story, her name is Morgan, she wrote it a couple of years ago, are probably a bit too long. And whoa, anyway, not there yet. Rutgers students have mixed opinions regarding taking online classes in place of the traditional classroom experience. Okay. So basically she wrote the mixed opinion story. Okay. These stories really got to be, now this is the thing about the leads. Okay. A lot of you got really creative about those leads in that leads assignment. Okay. I just want something that you would say to somebody as quickly as possible. You're telling them their information. Some of you responded to that leads worksheet thing like you were taking like an essay test. Okay. No. Okay. I need like noun, verb, active voice. Okay. Rutgers students have mixed opinions. Have mixed, that's have is the verb. Now, Rutgers students, I mean, that's almost always probably, since this is a story not about the bus system, it's about the students reacting to the bus system. Okay. You want to have it focusing on that. You want to, probably the first word should probably be some Rutgers students, many Rutgers students, whatever, have whatever opinions about, the bus system. Okay. And then probably would basically like maybe go into like some sort of overall direct object stating why they are. Okay. Because it doesn't work well, would work fine or something. Okay. All right. So I'll get to that. So this story is due on October 9th, which is a week from the day of the posting of this video. Now, the specific, make sure I got everything that I'm covering here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So the specific structure that I'm talking about is like more in depth than what I've provided in the past. Okay. So how do you get like a really, this is the kind of story, maybe this isn't necessarily, like I said, this isn't necessarily a breaking news story. This isn't necessarily a feature story either. It's kind of like it's still a news story that produces news. But a feature story would be kind of more like lighter or like more creative. And then actually, in that case, you do have longer leads and then that have build suspense. And we'll be doing that later in the semester. But this is actually just a straight news story telling people, hey, here's something new you know. This is how Rutgers students feel about the bus system right now, as opposed to last year. And now with the additional bus app driving them crazy. So you have like what I call the lead and then a transition, as I've talked about before, that basically what that does is it breaks down your story into individual points that back up the overall theme. Okay. So you have like essentially like a transition. Okay. And then you have an anecdote that helps illuminate the leads and the transitions. Okay. And that would be that personal experience, that I was talking about like on the bus or something. And then a quote, this is when the quotes come in. Okay. Maybe a nice short quote, basically like shortish quote, basically just providing some sort of color. And then you go back to another transition. And that's when you bring up maybe another point, another reason why, let's say, people feel fed up about the buses or something, and another anecdote that illuminates that. Now, let me show you how that works specifically, okay? Actually, let me show you how that works here, actually, with this story. So basically, she has the mixed opinion story, okay? You don't necessarily have to have just one anecdote on one point, but you basically, actually, let me go back to that. Let me just show you how this works on a bus story. Okay, so, okay. Yeah, I'll be talking about that in a bit. So let's say like our story is going to be about Rutgers students are fed up with the bus system. Okay, so basically that Rutgers students. Now look, this is not a poll or anything like that. Okay, I've seen, I've done stories like this in the past. I have people write like a survey has shown, and you're not doing a survey. You're writing a narrative. Okay, you're writing a story that basically just tells a story. And I'm telling you, a story just basically has a flow of information coming from people and their opinions. Okay. You're not taking a poll or anything like that. Okay. Don't please write that. I've had people write that in their stories in the past. That's why I bring it up. Okay. This is just supposed to provide a snapshot of how people feel about it. Not everybody necessarily feels this way, but what you're trying to do is show is that there is a group of people here that actually have feelings about this, and you're giving voice to them because maybe they've got frustrations about it and they need voice, that voice to get out there. And that's what the news business is supposed to do, is give voice to the voiceless. Okay. People just been routinely dealing with this bus system for many, many years, but you know, how there's gonna be, how can change happen if people don't say anything about it, right? So let's say like, you know, the Rutgers students say they're fed up with the bus system. And this is maybe where like a lot of people like put like additional clauses in their leads on the leads worksheets. Those leads are like almost for like breaking news stories, that sort of thing. They don't need like that long of a lead. For this kind of story, we have where the story is actually kind of long and in depth, then maybe a clause works. Okay, an additional clause, but you really got to like keep those on those leads worksheets. The leads as sharp as a tack. Okay, because many of them are just about numbers or whatever, like specific findings or a report, that sort of thing. So anyway, Rutgers, but you want to give people like a kind of a little fuller, I would say, glimpse of what you're right about writing about here. So Rutgers should say they're fed up with the bus system, or maybe you didn't even need a quote, say because it doesn't work well. So the attribution is right here. Rutgers say, okay. You don't have to write it exactly this way, okay? But that's your lead, maybe, okay? Then you go into a transition. What you do with the transitions, this is actually a good idea for like maybe doing an outline. You do transition, anecdote. Like I said, sometimes you could have maybe like two anecdotes that are under the same transition. Maybe another transition, and I'm sorry, I forgot the quote. It's a good place for a quote is usually like right here. Okay. Anecdote, and then a quote. And then rinse repeat. Maybe you just do that. You keep following that same format. What these transitions do here is that they essentially provide a guide. And I'm going to show you a TV report because TV reporters do this. They bring you when they bring you to they have a story or something like that. They bring you from people to people, place to place, point to point, and help guide you through. And what they're doing is they're providing transitions for the stories, for the transition. They're transitioning from point to point, and these transitions, what they do is they help back up the largest point. This. So what you're doing is you're providing these transitions essentially provide the reasons. Like almost if you made this turn this into a question, the answers would be the transition. Okay. So so you say, well, why do Rutgers students say they're fed up with the buses because it doesn't work well? Okay. So maybe the first answer to that is because some students say the buses are, by the way, remember this buses is spelled not that way. That's kisses. Okay. It's spelled this way. I've had people do that years, time and time again. Some students say the buses are too overcrowded. Okay. So that's one reason why. Okay. Then the anecdote. Paul Brown, Rutgers. It's good to also identify that, make sure to let people know that these students actually come from here. Okay. Not just picking random people. I realize other people from outside of Rutgers use the buses. So you want people to connect to. It's a local story, that sort of thing. Rutgers, just maybe a Rutgers student, said he gets claustrophobic. Personal experience, so people can really connect to it, maybe even laugh at, maybe even get disgusted by, whatever. I'm not spelling claustrophobic, right? Okay. Phobic, and can't stand the smell when he's on a crowded bus. Okay. And then a quote. It stinks like hell in there. This really shows emotion. And I can't stand it. That's a good quote. All right. Don't, I see people do this a lot. This is like almost lazy reporting where they kind of feel like, and then they don't usually talk like that. They'll say, like, he said, I am getting really claustrophobic. And then it gets all wordy and everything. And I can't stand the heat. And they get this really long quote when all you need to do is just paraphrase it. Okay. You just say, like, this is informational, it's not colorful. He gets claustrophobic. I can't stand the smell when he's on a crowded bus. Okay. That's your anecdote. and you try to paraphrase that with your own writing and be a storyteller. And you have a quote, it stinks like hell in there and I can't stand it. Okay. Then you come up with like a second reason. One thing I hear all the time is other students say the buses routinely run late and they miss class. Don't have to be exactly this. I find new things out when I do this story every time. So Jim Davis, a Rutgers student, and you have an anecdote, a personal experience, said he has missed or he is late to his Livingston classes every week because of the bus. His teacher yells at him. He says, it's quite embarrassing. And I am, I don't know, performing poorly as a result. A little colorful, a little personal. See how that goes, right? See, it's almost like kind of like you can even, like I said, maybe like, you got another person here who has an anecdote that maybe you could put like a second anecdote here. That would be fine, Another person who like runs into that trouble, okay? Doesn't have to follow this structure exactly. And maybe that third transition might be the bus app. Some really can't, I heard people say they can't even see the bus or something like that, or the route or whatever, or can't stand the new bus app. Saying it's crap, or no, it doesn't work. And then, just have basically somebody talk about their personal experience with it as an anecdote. Okay. All right. So that's how that story should be done. Okay. And then you just end it. The best way to end that story is just to end it with a transition anecdote quote. And if a quote is your last thing and no conclusion, please. And you're done. Right. All right. So that's how that story should be done. Okay. And as I said, provide you a certain pattern here. And then I was going to show you the sample here. This is again is a different topic altogether. It's about online courses and COVID. Rutgers students have mixed opinions regarding taking online classes in place of the traditional classroom experience. Zoom-based, should probably need this right here, but then, well, actually, this is the transition. Zoom-based and asynchronous classes have become far more common. Rutgers students, the new experience seems to be different for everyone. That's supposed to be kind of like the first point being made, being that like some say it's just been it's had a different, some students are basically saying they have I've had different experiences regarding it, good and bad. Okay. That should be like the first transition. Allison Girardi, now this is the anecdote. A sophomore pursuing journalism and media studies commented on the important distinction between asynchronous and remote. She expressed a strong preference for asynchronous classes over both remote and in person. Sometimes anecdotes take two paragraphs, which is fine. Okay, Girardi said that the asynchronous classes are most convenient for busy students and allow for more self-paced learning. She said the remote classes, on the other hand, offer a little benefit over the physical classroom. I think things have changed a bit since then. Other students have about others concerned students have about online schooling, includes self-discipline and turning assignments in on time without lectures to attend. You got Melissa here, prefers the more traditional route, opting for fully in person. She said that she struggles to, this is actually where it gets good. She struggles to motivate herself when there is a lecture to attend. That's a good anecdote right there. Okay. So that's the second point being made. Like I said, some of these quotes are just probably a little bit too long. I really probably should put a better example in there, but anyway, so that's what you have in there. I will once I get like a good one, and I'll put one in there, okay, as a sample for everybody, and then I'll probably send out a note to everybody for everybody to see it. Okay. All right, so that's what's due in a week. So all right, so yeah, I'm just going over my list of things to do, how to do the structure video. Okay, oh yeah, I was going to show you basically like how this is actually done on TV. Now, this isn't the best written or put together story in the world. okay, but I thought maybe that's something that maybe you all can relate to. Um, and because it's something happened at Rutgers University, happened a long time ago, of course, but basically the idea is that you have a reporter, a TV reporter, sometimes he's really softly put together, hastily put together, who basically is doing a follow-up to a terrible tragedy that happened at Rutgers University in 1988. I was a student there at the time. And what you have here in this report from Channel 4 at WNBC News in New York, um, what happened was you have an update to the tragedy that happened first, that story, and then you have another story following that from a reporter on the scene, and what she's doing is essentially is what you're doing, is she's getting reaction to something, and she's turning that into a story, okay? And what she's doing is she's acting, she's the guy, like she's the transition maker. She's the one that's actually providing the guidance from point to point throughout the story, okay? So what happened here was actually there was a terrible thing that happened. There was a student who drank, 19-year-old student, James Callahan, who drank 33 kamikazes. I don't know if you had like parents who were there at the time, or cousins or friends or whatever, but it was like made national. It was a huge deal. I almost feel like it was like the dividing line between Rutgers being like a borderline Ivy League school, which is an overrated thing anyway, and Rutgers being called a party school. I was actually a little surprised. I was a bit surprised after that happened, because I remember I met my future wife in 1995, 7 years after this happened, which I always feel like those were two different eras because it was the 90s versus the 80s. But anyway, it's like Nirvana versus, I don't know, Paul Abdul. But um, anyway, I remember my future mother-in-law, one of the first things she said to me was, Rutgers, isn't that a party school? I was like, oh my God, seriously? But then I thought about this whole thing and how this made like magazine news covers, front page news, TV, whole thing was before the internet. Okay. So, it was viral for its time. And anyway, it involved this fraternity, Lambda Chi Alpha. I had friends in this fraternity actually, and they were not known as like the worst fraternity on campus, to be honest with you, but they participated probably the worst thing. And it was this. And so that unfortunately this pledge died after drinking 33 kamikazes. It was a hazing ritual. Those of you like, if you know the campus at all, um, it's actually located where the Kabod House is right now, which is right next to the College Avenue Gymnasium. It was torn down around 1990-91. You'll see actually video of it when I show this to you. And you'll see it looked like a stink hole, basically. And I think it was actually a big reason why my brother was in Teak, which was like a mess. That was another fraternity. And my father said, I'm going to pull all funding from you if you join a fraternity. And I was like, oh, whatever. I'm involved in Targum anyway. So anyway, so let's watch this, okay, and show how they do it here, okay. First, what you're going to see, like I said, is first like a follow-up, essentially a story itself, quick follow-up to what's going on, which is what's done in news media. You basically, like it is done now, okay, you basically follow up, you tell people what's new, what's the latest, and then it's followed up by essentially a reaction piece, a fuller piece, that kind of, again, is a snapshot of what's going on in the university, because it affected so many things. They banned parties, they banned fraternity parties. It was, everybody was walking on eggshells, the whole thing. Okay.
Medical tests are still being conducted on the body of a Rutgers University freshman to find out if he drank himself to death at a fraternity pledge party.
Okay, so that's actually is very short, but that's the initial story first. But now we're going to go to Perry Peltz. Now she's going to get a little bit long-winded, so this isn't a very good lead, I would say, as you would say, a first paragraph to her story. I'll show you where the lead comes in. Okay.
Force Perry Peltz visited the campus today. At first glance, this fraternity looks like any other on the Rutgers University campus. But a closer examination reveals the remnants of an all-night pledge party that has closed the Greek house of Lambda Chi Alpha, a pledge party that has left freshman James Callahan dead, apparently from drinking too much, and another student treated at a nearby hospital for alcohol-related illness. The university is,
she's essentially providing like an idea, like which is what TV reporters do. They have to provide more of the setting, like where they are, what are they looking at, that sort of thing. And now we're starting to get reaction, but the lead there doesn't really come in yet. It's a bit of a disorganized piece.
In mourning because of it. The
a terrible situation, terrible incident, and it's one that I think processed and think carefully on individuals.
Callahan was one of 13 students who had been invited to join the all-male fraternity. According to one student, pledges were told to drink until they got sick, and evidently that's not an uncommon sight around the university.
All right, so that's the lead essentially, is basically what she's saying is that students are saying that, you know, people are told they could drink until they got sick, and that's not an uncommon sight. So she's saying that there's a lot of partying going on and people are getting sick, and this is what's happening at Rutgers. So that's her lead, and it's based on student reaction. Okay, just got. I don't want something as long-winded as what she had. I want something as straightforward as possible. That's why I tried to provide that sort of guidance on the leads worksheet. Okay. But now we're going to go into essentially a their version of anecdotes. Okay. I know they're actually essentially direct quotes, but they're their version of anecdotes. They're going to bring it from person to person to kind of illuminate, you know, they provide their personal experience that are anecdotes help illuminate the larger point being made, and that is that this is a crazy wild party place and this sort of thing. Okay.
I think a lot of people get very drunk. I think if you ride a campus bus on a Friday or Saturday night, you see people getting sick on themselves. You see people passing out. I think it's a big problem.
It's widespread throughout the campus, whether in fraternity, in the dorms, or wherever.
Yeah, that's me. I always try to provide that as a little shock to people. But anyway, my kids have been making fun of me for years, especially for what I'm about to say.
And I don't know how they're going to stop it.
Yeah, I always say, I don't know how they're going to stop it. I've said that in this video for like ever and ever. And anyway, so it's I've been hearing about it forever. Anyway, what you're seeing right now essentially is a transition. Okay, so she's going to actually transition through the real estate, what they call a real estate shop, bringing it from point to point. Okay, what she's going to do is she's going to help essentially guide you, you know, from point to point. Okay, and that's what they typically do is when they actually are transitioning to a new point, and they actually typically show like what they call B-roll, or they show like something that is just like an atmosphere or an atmospheric shot or a real estate shot.
Callahan and the rest of the students pledging the fraternity were all under the legal drinking age of 21, a legal limit that students admit is easy to get around, and a problem school administrators acknowledge.
We try and encourage students to run non-alcoholic parties. Enforcement regulations and policies, but
that's funny. That's funny.
Adding all of those efforts.
Fraternities will almost become like drinking clubs now. So that I think it was not about time something like this happened. I wish it had been something where it was just a shock. But maybe this will just change sort of the atmosphere of fraternities here to clean up their act.
Do you think it's going to change partying habits here at the school?
I don't think so. Not on a long-term basis anyway. I think that for a while things will slow down and then they'll get back to the regular behavior, basically.
And after the fact at Lambda Chi Alpha, all fraternity
which I don't want
and
you to provide
sorority
as a
parties
conclusion, but
have been temporarily banned. Harry Peltz, News 4, New Brunswick, New Jersey.
so there you go. There's that. Okay. I'm just gonna have to take the stop for a break for a second. All right, buddy. I had to deal with something that my daughter asked for. So, good. All right. All right, let's talk about, let's see if we just make sure we've covered everything regarding that assignment. Okay, yeah. All right. So anyway, you now, besides that, you have the lead rewrites that are due. Okay. Now a few things about this. Okay, big things. Okay. One sentence leads I asked for. Okay. All right. Leads are typically only really like one sentence. Okay. So now I made that bolder and darker in this one here so people didn't miss it, but I just want to make sure everybody understand that. Also, do not write this one I had in capital letters, but people did it anyway. Do not write leads that look like headlines. Please write full sentences. Okay. So anyway, now just to show you what the just one second. Here it is. Here's the now here's the worksheets. Okay. Now it does actually say right here, it says write a one sentence summary lead. Now what I was trying to tell people was like try to ignore terms like summary and all that stuff. Just a lead. It's the same thing. They all do the same job. They summarize essentially, okay? But it does say here one sentence, okay? Now, look, I know how that could get confused because I did say that, that paragraph should be like no more than 2 or 3 sentences. So people thought, well, the lead's part of that or whatever. But to be honest with you, I mean, the lead really should be no more than a sentence, okay? I mean, again, I was trying to use comparisons to like Twitter or X or whatever else it's called now or something, or your Instagram. Usually put like one sentence to let people know what's going on or sending a message to somebody. That's what you're doing here essentially with your lead. I mean, what leads of stories are typically taken from, usually extracted and then put on social media. You want to make it sure that they're sharp and written well, because that's usually what the social media people at these news organizations do and use for their, for their social media language. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to actually go to each of these little patches of information, okay, and pick out using active voice, okay, pick out essentially like what is the lead that essentially, what is the information that should be in that lead, okay? And I was making a big stink about about the numbers. The numbers are really really important, okay? And especially like what's the newest biggest thing, okay? I mean, right here I was a little stunned when I would see like there was a protest, 2,500 people. Well, there's lots of protests, how many people actually arrest 150 people, okay? It says nearly 150. I know some people were kind of wrestled with the number, putting it at the beginning of the sentence because EP style says you have to actually spell out the number, but whatever. Nearly 150 people were arrested, okay? And you just need one sentence for that, not 2. People, you just need one sentence for the lead, not 2, okay? So let's fix that and correct that. I had people here, I'm giving away some answers here, okay? I had people here write about the robbery, but what about the robbery, okay? It's not just a robbery. I mean, there's lots of robberies that happen, but what did they steal here? That was, I mean, what did they typically steal? Money, right? They didn't do that here, okay? So that's interesting here. I also I mean, I went over this a little bit, but not so much, but you really should try to keep names out of leads, okay? Unless they're like person's well known, like a mayor or, whatever, known well in town or something like that. But Kathy Mahoney doesn't need to be there. I'm sorry, not diminish the value of somebody, okay? But I'm just saying that, just to basically say a woman was, burned in a fire, that sort of thing, okay? For the life of me, I'm sorry, I know I'm sounding a little bit I don't mean to be caustic on when I write on these things, but I'm trying to be as direct as possible. We're dealing with a situation here where we're detached. I'm in an asynchronous relationship with you guys, so it's I have to get my message out to you guys, but life of me, I could not understand why. I'm sorry, 53% was not in your lead, okay? And also you didn't have AP style correct. It's 5-3, the percent sign, okay? But that's a huge increase, okay? That's a lot different than one person, okay? Or 1%. Just like 150 is a lot different than one person being arrested, okay? Just think almost like common sense. Is that unusual? It's got to be if it's that high, right? 10%, that's a lot too. 10% increase in skin cancer. I'll talk about this one in a bit. That's actually my favorite one. None of these are actually weighted or anything like that, but this one involving the attempted murder, okay? That's my favorite one. For life of me, I could not understand why people would not include the 12% increase in their leads, okay? All right. So you just got to narrow that down, okay? And one big thing, no headlines, okay? Now look, there's a thing called headline ease, and I know it's horrible, it's an obituary, but New York Times writes kind of, their headlines are a little bit on the long side, but it's a whole different thing, okay? There's articles like and the that are missing from headlines, okay? With the idea with the headlines, it's a 19th century thing that they're still in practice, and the idea is to show action by putting things in present tense. Dianne Feinstein, 90, dies, okay? Well, she's dead. She died, okay? I hate to I hope I don't sound callous when I say that, but that's something that happened already. So it's past tense. So when you actually write the story, you write that she died. The Grand Dame of California Democrats who became mayor of San Francisco died. See how it's past tense here? Because it happened already. But here, it's written in headlineese, which is like a whole different language altogether, okay? Don't write this, okay? Oldest sitting senator and fixture of politics. So if you wanted to turn this into a sentence, you would say Dianne Feinstein, who was 90 years old, see, that's missing too. You wouldn't say that if I was telling you, like, you said to me, like, who died? You'd say, would you say it this way, like a robot? Dianne Feinstein, 90, dies. You wouldn't say it that way. You would say, well, Dianne Feinstein, who was 90, just died. And then you would make this a full sentence. She was the oldest sitting senator of and fixture of California politics. Okay. So you would make that a full sentence when you actually would try to relay that news, much like you would do in the lead. Okay. So the headline is a different thing altogether. Okay. All right. So I like to use I was actually using this as an example too. Oops, not that. Okay, so you got this. See, I mean, basically like the old fashioned dog bites man, right? So the headline would be dog bites man. But you know, if you were to ask me, actually, like my dog bit somebody so the other day. So it's actually we'll just say woman. So basically it would say dog bites. You're not a robot. So basically, like somebody said to me, like, what happened with Bruiser, my dog, who's by the way right here. He's actually a good dog. He doesn't bite people. Hi, Bruiser. Say hi, Bruiser. No, not yet. Maybe he's gonna bite somebody. Anyway, he bit my wife's boss the other day. I don't know. I think he just kind of clamped on her hand. I don't know. But anyway, her name is Margie. Okay. So you were to ask me, like, what happened with the dog and Margie? I wouldn't say dog bites Margie. Okay, you wouldn't say it that way. That's headlineese. You would say, like a lead, a dog bit Margie. Then you probably would even add a little more substance on the hand. Okay. All right. That's the difference. Okay. So let's look at like some of these leads that I was telling you about. That one, number 7, it's my favorite one because it is stacked with so much information that I can understand. It's actually hard to resist not putting all that stuff in there, you know. But that's like the whole purpose of writing a whole story, is that maybe you take some of the stuff that's in there and you move it down. Okay. You have to make that. You have to make when you're a writer, a reporter, you have to make that editorial decision. You're like I said, you have to be like almost like your own editor, especially nowadays because these editing staffs have been cut. So you have to make that decision. Like, okay, so what, you know, I want to make sure that like whatever I got there, okay, can be cut down, okay, into like, or can be kind of like, you know, can be cut down till it's like sharp, and then whatever is the most unusual, interesting thing, and of course the essential things are the remaining items in the lead. I mean, there's obviously some things that are like essential that it's not a story without, okay, and that is, you know, an attempted murder is not unique, but it needs to be there because that's what happened. Okay, that's the overall idea. But how do we like sharpen that so that it's unusual? Okay, so let's look at this first one. Paul Carter, 62, was murdered by Santa Ana woman June Carter. Now, I saw some of these. This, first of all, this is incorrect. Why is this incorrect? Well, I saw he wasn't murdered. Okay. Okay. I saw that a lot. You got to really read these things carefully. I mean, actually, that could actually end up in a lawsuit if you like say accuse somebody of murder when they're not actually murdering. June Carter, don't need the name. Okay. Also, it's just way too short. Okay. There's not enough. I mean, and I hate to say it, it's not enough, not unusual enough based on the information we gathered. Okay. Police in Santa Ana, California. I mean, you could include the town if it's like local, that's important, you know, because you want to know it's local. But if it's in New Jersey, you don't care if it's in Santa Ana. Okay. Release that a woman is being held on a $250,000 bond for attempted murder after trying to light her sick husband on fire. Okay, this is actually closer to being better, but it's got one big problem. Can you think what it is? It's probably a little difficult to detect. It's right here. Release. It's written in present tense, like they're releasing this, like as we're talking right now. That's headlineese right there. Okay. Please. I mean, I know it's a long long, it's a long sentence or whatever you want to call it, okay? But it's like put in some sort of present tense. No, that's headline. What I want is she was charged, okay? This one still isn't there, okay? Santa Ana woman charged with, it's actually kind of written a little bit like a headline, charged with attempted, it should say a Santa woman was charged, okay, with attempted murder after setting her husband on fire, okay? So it needs those essential things to read like a real written, spoken, conversational headline. But it's missing, like, why write just chocolate? I mean, there's comedians who have made fun of the Easter Bunny. Okay, it's like it's. I mean, I don't mean to spoil anybody's like holiday or anything like that. Okay, but it's like when you get older and everything, you start to get a little jaded. And I've had plenty of Easter egg hunts for my kids and stuff. But like, there was this one comedian who used to make fun of it, like Easter Bunny. Who thought of this idea anyway? You know, like the crucifixion of Christ and the rising of Christ, and then you celebrate it with an Easter Bunny laying eggs. So it's almost ridiculous to begin with. Why wouldn't you include that? You know, why would you, I had people vote chocolate bar. That's not even really accurate. Okay. An argument over now here's a really long one where they just took 2 minutes to put too much stuff in here. An argument over a chocolate Easter bunny has led to the arrest of June Carter, a resident of Santa Ana, California, who is currently being held on an Orange County jail on a $250,000 bond after allegedly setting her cancer-stricken husband, Paul Carter, on fire while rubbing alcohol, leaving him with third-degree burn. I mean, you can tell right there, it's the way I'm reading out loud, and that's one way I've suggested, like, handling these things is actually maybe reading them out loud and seeing how they sound. You can tell, I mean, look how long it took me to read that out loud. It's like my face hurts after that. Okay, so it's way too long. So stuff in here has to go down. Okay, there's stuff in here that has to be like taken out of here and like moved down in the story. Okay. I mean, obviously, like I said, there's like the arrest and attempted murder element of it is actually, it needs to stay here. But maybe there's certain things like cancer stricken. When you think about it, how many times does that actually happen? When we've heard about crimes with the elderly, where people burn people, that's actually not completely unusual. Okay, I hate to say. I mean, it would be a story if this part right here was not here. Okay, that would be a story that's good enough for a story. But this, how many times have you heard of this happening? Maybe once. Okay, so you go from something that maybe happens in the thousands to something that happens once. Okay, so yeah, that's a story right there, and that needs to be there. Okay. And I mean, it's also not I think it's supposed to actually be capitalized, but you gotta really like, pick out that unique element in there, whether it's a number that shows like a high increase or like some just weird element of it, food being stolen as opposed to money or whatever. Okay. Hoping that basically like you watch this whole video because I'm giving away answers. So anyway, chapters 3 and 4, actually, those are the chapters I've actually asked you to read this past week. I actually deal with that a bit. Chapter 3 talks about eliminating unnecessary words. Of course, I just told you with a headline, don't write a headline, so they actually add words. So that's a little bit, but with that last lead I showed you, there's just way too much. So maybe like I said, maybe you move some elements down or something like that. Okay. On the story. Okay. Down to other parts, that don't need to be said in the lead. Okay. Adjectives, don't really need to be said. Obviously, we want to avoid racism and sexism. Okay. Unless like somebody said something that is that. Okay. And then you want to basically, maybe that's a story in itself. Okay. You want to avoid opinion. Obamacare is great, but then fact, this is what it is. Okay. It's actually the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, commonly blah, blah, blah. This is what it is, factually speaking. Okay. I'm just trying to look for the one. Actually, I just kind of lost my train of thought a little bit. Just so it was like one thing I was looking for. Maybe it's in the next chapter. The next chapter actually talks about. Actually, I'm sorry. Just give me another second here. I apologize. Oh, there it is, right here. Like right here. Okay. This is another one that's actually just way too long. Okay. The mayor said he was happy with the council that passed a resolution to increase public library tax to provide more funds to expand the library's book collection, to build a website. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, how about the mayor said he was happy to, the council passed a resolution increasing the property tax, I'm sorry, the public library tax. And then they have another sentence that gets into it, okay? Then maybe in like a paragraph down or something like that, okay? All right, yeah, the pizza man came. Anyway, so. There we go, there's the dog. Let's go down to chapter 4, okay, which does the same thing. Basically talks about like really trying to be succinct in what I call the economy of words, okay, the language of news, the effectiveness of the words. Noun, verb, the patient refused an autopsy, the phone rang, okay, you want to be as straightforward as possible, okay, in your words and, you know, Bill threw the ball. As opposed to, I saw people write leads that said something like a decision was made where where a 12% tax increase or 12% tuition increase was made. That's a very passive way of writing. How about the college raised tuition 12%? And you're done, okay? So you want to avoid that passive voice where the verb essentially is before the noun, okay? Bill threw the ball, he threw the ball. Okay. Verbs that are like strong as possible, but like not too crazy. Okay. Active and passive voice. The batter hit the ball. The ball was hit by the batter. That's a, people don't say like when you talk to somebody, you say like, did he hit the ball? And he goes, well, the ball was hit by the batter. Yes. No, you say the batter hit the ball. You don't say the ball was hit by Johnny. You say, you're looking at like, what? You say the Johnny hit the ball. You want to get to that point, that period as quickly as possible, okay? And avoid things like run-on sentences and stuff like that, okay? All right, so anyway, more of that chapter deals with like kind of like what I would deal with like in, you know, English grammar, stuff like that, which is stuff you really should like have an understanding of before you really get here. But I thought it was really important to kind of emphasize the overuse of adjectives and adverbs. You want to just stay as factual as possible. Cliches, I saw a little bit of that. I saw people write things like, instead of writing like, they would write things like a shocking number of murders have happened. Well, okay, do you have to write shocking? No, just say 53%. You're inserting your opinion and then it gets corny and sounds kind of silly. You know, you say a shocking. It's like a tabloidal thing that people want to kind of laugh at, you know. You want to say like, just say 53% increase in murders, that's all. You know, that tells the story right there, you know. All right, so that's all I have. So you got those things that are due. And a week from now is due the reaction to the bus story, okay, and please contribute to the discussion point, which closes in a week. And of course, you got the rewrite to the to the leads assignment, okay. All right, and then we'll move on from there. So let me know. I've had office hours for people already, so let me know if you want to do that. I do that by Zoom, kind of like I'm doing right now. So, all right. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks very much, everybody, and I will be talking to you.